For reasons that I cannot explain, you guys are getting a video for my Gothic literature class about my favorite book in the world, We Have Always Lived in the Castle. That being said, we're going to hop right into it. Okay, so briefly, we're going to talk about the whole entire book as a whole. So through the character of Mary Cat, Jackson has examined the psychological impacts of isolation and prosecution. Mary Cat is an eccentric and paranoid young woman who has been ostracized by the townspeople, along with her sister Constance Blackwood and Uncle Julian. But people see her to be a witch, which we'll get into the symbolism of witchcraft in a bit. But due to her isolation, Mary Cat's mental state begins to deteriorate, leading to an increase in her paranoia and delusions. Despite this, she remains fiercely protective of her sister Constance and their home, and is willing to do whatever it takes to keep her safe from the outside world. So when we touch on that as a concept, we see throughout the book her doing protective measures with the witchcraft, which is a really big symbol. But most of the time, the protective measures are for Constance, and she seems overly possessive of her. And then most of the Gothic elements are already been talked about and talked about in class, but most of them are just depicted as the Gothic element of the estate itself, like the house itself has the supernatural beliefs. The townspeople added the uneasy feeling and isolation that the novel already gives us, the consequences of being isolated and prosecuted, and mistreatment of people, and also ultimately how the entire house burned down and how the townspeople reacted as a whole, which we're going to get into that fairly quickly. And so throughout the book, we kind of see that the house is already decaying as of itself, especially through the actions of Mary Cat, and also just how she is when she lives with her sister. She's also just very independent, despite being very dependent, which is also a weird thing. But the supernatural elements also add to that eerie atmosphere and the theme of isolation and madness. Also, Mary Cat isn't an unreliable narrator, but she does leave a lot of things out. And with her being kind of crazy, there's a lot of things that we already talked about how she puts things in a way that she thinks should be like, oh, I'm not allowed to pour the tea, I'm not allowed to handle the sugar, stuff like that. Because Mary Cat does have a very supernatural belief in the world because of her deterioration due to the traumatic events that she experienced when she was younger. So, another theme that we also have to touch on, because of just how big it is the theme of women having more power than the male figures in their lives, which is very much what they did, which is why they're isolated. As we can tell, they already are being mistreated by the townsfolk, especially because they're women, but also because there's no man left in the family. So now they have this traumatic event that just happened, and we had Constance go to court, and now, yeah, on and on and on, till we only have these women being self-sufficient in their own home. They don't have a man around to really encapsulate that. And when it does come around and threaten that self-sufficiency, we see exactly how Mary Cat reacts to that, because that is exactly what we are trying not to have. But also, it adds on to the isolation. They continuously isolate themselves more and more due to this fact. One thing that I will say that I don't think most people think about, but my scholarly source did think about, was the fact that it alludes to the Salem witch trials, which I think is pretty cool because of witchcraft. In this book, we are also forced to think about good or evil, and right from wrong, because moralism is one of the big things that Jackson is questioning here throughout the entire book, and it's forcing us to think about is exactly the moral that is being portrayed, because it really does call to the static nature of that, because of the coexisting, like priorities versus the destruction of the house. But also, it's because most of the time we do see Mary Cat's point of view that do have the comfortability with death, things that leave you. The idea that things that cause destruction cause her comfort because these people happen to be her. So it does ask us if morally she's in the wrong, even though we do see her do multiple acts of not very kind things, like killing baby snakes, and also destroying the real father's herd. And now on to the witchcraft, which is very clearly a symbol of the deteriorating state of Mary Cat's mind, and also a coping mechanism is what we something happening. So a way of giving yourself after a traumatic event, but far from that, it also is a coping mechanism why she is so separated from the town. While she was doing all this stuff, she was pretending to be a witch, which is kind of cool. But it shows her willingness to persevere and keep going through despite the very closed-minded people that are around her. So, examples of the witchcraft might be the act of nailing a notebook to a tree, the act of planting things represented as a paradoxical blend and nurturing the deadly force without the connection of life and death. The link with the moon, and also the moon is also considered a feminine symbol, which just, brings back that whole self-sufficient female character. Arson. The arson. That too. The arson. The arson's a big one. Going into that, because we just touched on females, the oppression of women in this book is a really big thing. Constance being oppressed is one of the driving forces that causes the biggest main events in this book to happen. And now, with that being said, let's go over the pages I had. Okay, so let's continue. So, basically, we're starting to see more of Carl's character, and he is a bad guy. He's quite literally there just to steal all of their money and just dip. Trying to replace the father, very much trying to marry his fucking cousin, pardon my French, trying to marry Constance, make her into a submissive woman, and also just being a complete jerk, along with punishing Mary Cat and pulling up a bunch of terrible memories that did not come out. We finally learn who killed the entire family, and oh my god, if you're watching this in class, you were right. You know who you are. Either way, this made Mary Cat go ahead and set fire to all of Charles' belongings, but the fire did end up engulfing the entire house. With the chaos going on, Uncle Julian does die. No one really seems to care about that, for real, but he does die from the smoke, and then the villagers, who all already hated them, decide to come together and band together, just make it all worse. They actually go ahead and start ripping the house down. They try to get the girls. It's a lot to unpack. But, that being said, this is finally where we learn exactly what I was trying to tell you guys in class, but I couldn't tell you because I couldn't spoil it. Mary Cat and Constance did have a very problematic family life. We finally learned that Mary Cat decided to protect Constance from their abusive father, and this act of violence was like, kind of like, I'll do anything for you because I love you so much. It was obsessive, kind of loving, but it does, like, showcase the mental state that Mary Cat truly is in. But Constance, who, you know, didn't do it, she did acknowledge Mary Cat's actions, and she also understood the necessariness, the need for what she did to save her. But I really want to just hit back on home that this ending really emphasizes the going insane, being isolated from people, the otherness, the whole Gothic element of a domestic home. But that domestic home got ruined by a man. It's always a man. It's quite literally always a man. We can never escape the men's. I fear it. But the sister relationship was so very strong that they had each other. But being ostracized from the town and all this other stuff, and the trauma resurfacing, just shambles of this home that they've lived in forever, you know, because we've always lived in the castles. It really does reflect, like, the thoughts of poisoning, everything that we've seen throughout this book so far. It all reflects the resentment and the desire to get back, like Mary Cat's get back at everyone who's ever wronged her. But it's really a book about a protective bond between sisters that reveals, like, just how far a sister's bond can go and how dangerous it can be for somebody to mess with that, which I really like, because I've never had sisters. But even in the end, it is still Mary Cat who goes to safeguard Constance. And it will forever be that way for these two girls. They will forever have that type of thing. I didn't hit home on the symbolism of the cat. I forgot the name, but I forgot to hit home on the symbolism of the cat. Cat is a very big symbol, especially because the cat talking, that's another thing about the mental state of Mary Cat. Oh, and just to make it clear, Mary Cat has an issue with punishment because she was punished before the dinner and everything, and she was constantly punished because she was a wicked child. And then also, Constance didn't put any sugar. She doesn't like berries. Like, she didn't eat the arsenic that was put in. So, just have to preface that if someone didn't read. There was arsenic that Constance bought to kill rats, and Mary Cat decided that in order to save both of them, she would just put that in the sugar. And at the end, very end, now that we finally got here to this point of the video, they have each other. They have this stupidly destroyed house. And the townspeople now feel so bad because not only did a guy die, and they now have the funeral that they heard from the townspeople, but these townspeople are now trying to make amends or be nicer to these girls who they quite literally only tried to kill. They all came there to kill them and rip apart their home, and they've isolated these girls for years and truly only had hatred for them in their souls, to the point where it's quite silly to see them try to fix their wrongs. Personally, after you do something like that, I think you have to leave the country. But they end up bringing gifts or peace offerings, and they're basically just trying to feel bad for them, but really it's just not, it's not, like, they want to apologize and they're not going to. Charles does show up again, but he gets killed. He got, like, he gets killed, because he tries to, like, forcefully talk to Constance. Again, we're hitting incest territory. I don't want to say it, but yeah, he wants it. he was being, just like their father, most likely sexually abusive. But, you know, it's just one of those things. But anyway, they did bury Uncle Julia in the backyard. No, not Uncle Julian. My bad. They do bury Charles in the backyard. They hide all his stuff, and they just go about life. And it's just one of those things that it's something. And then obviously we have a sister-in-law. Cute. You know, just like, aww. And that's kind of like where it really ends. But, the girls are just talking about if they should eat a child. That's literally the end. I will say, I don't think in the book they kill Charles. I think Charles just gets in his car and leaves in the book. But the movie that I did rewatch recently, Charles did die. Spoiler! But, no. This is my favorite book. It is a wonderful book. I'm so happy you guys got to read it. It really is just a wonderful book. I don't know what to say. But now that we've gone through all that, we're gonna hit on some quotes that I love. This one, just because I find it funny, it's page 100. It's 122. But I'm sure they misunderstood the people last night. I'm sure Constance was upset, and I must tell them that nobody meant any harm. Constance, listen to me, please. We want you and Mary Catherine to come to our house until we can decide what to do with you. Everything's all right. Really, it is. We're going to forget all about it. Do you think she will push over the house? I just find it funny because what do you mean they meant no harm? What do you mean? We can't be so for real. 117. As long as we sat quietly together in the kitchen, it was possible to postpone seeing the rest of the house. The library books were still on their shelves, untouched, and I suppose that no one had wanted to touch books belonging to the library. There was a fine, after all, for destroying library property. I like it because it goes back to the library books and the routines, and I just think it's sweet that even though everything went to shit, they still have each other, and they still choose to just sit there with each other like they used to do. The first page of chapter 9. I sat by the creek, wishing that I had been kinder to Uncle Julian. Uncle Julian had believed that I was dead, and now he was dead himself. Bow your heads to our beloved Mary Catherine, I thought, or you will be dead. And this kind of goes back to the worshiping scene we talked about last class, but I just like it because even then it's just like, I should have been kinder, but you know, like, he's dead. So, 110. Like, I would cover her with leaves like children in a story and keep her safe and warm. Perhaps I would sing to her or tell her stories. I would bring her bright fruits and berries and water in a leaf cup. Someday we would go to the moon. I found the entrance to my hiding place and laid Constance in and took her to the corner where there was a fresh pile of leaves and a blanket. I just think it's sweet. Because they went to the moon, that's the moon, and it's just so cute. I can't help it, it's adorable. I find that part to be very cute. Because after everything, she still decides to do her coping, but she does it with Constance, and they lay down together, and it's just a very wholesome moment. Most of my quotes are wholesome moments. 96. Our beloved, our dearest Mary Catherine must be guarded and cherished. Thomas, give your sister your dinner. She would like more to eat. Dorothy, Julian, rise when our beloved daughter rises. Bow all our heads. adore our Mary Catherine. It's just funny. It's just funny because she's always constantly just, it's everything with her. It's everything with this girl. I can't ever get a break from her. Everything she does, everything she says, it's just kind of funny. And then I think there's like 2 more that I got. 104. When I listened particularly for the fire, I could hear it, a singing hot noise upstairs, but over and around it, smothering it, were the voices of men inside and the voices of the people watching outside and the distant sound of cars on the driveway. I just think it's very descriptive and I like it. But again, men. It's always a man. It's always a man. Always a man. This one's on 106. Above it all, most horrible was the laughter. I saw one of the Durston figurines thrown and break against the porch rail, and on the other fell unbroken and rolled along the grass. I heard Constance's harp go over with a musical cry, and a sound which I knew was a chair being smashed against the wall. Well, what can I say? They went through it, but it's okay. Shirley Jackson is a great author. I love her, and I love this book, and I really loved explaining it. I'm sorry I haven't been talking as much as class. This video is for if I'm sick, or I don't attend, or anything of the sort. Yeah, so that was my little rundown. I hope it sufficed all of you. That being said, peace, love, chicken grease, don't slip on the way out. Bye-bye.